He can,
What's happening? It's Brandon Tierney. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
The only way you can take CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. We've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Good morning, Raider Nation. Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on the post-NFL draft edition, if you will. So, of course, the draft was supposed to be here in Las Vegas. That didn't happen. We all know the reason why. But nonetheless, it went on in its virtual format. The strange and surreal virtual 2020 NFL draft is over. The Raiders stocked up on dynamic players, but did they address all of their needs? Did the Raiders get the players they need to push towards competing for the AFC West? How did the rest of the division do? We'll take a look at all of it and give you our impressions of the Las Vegas Raiders draft haul over the next 2 hours. Don't forget, we're streaming live on the radio.com app. If you don't have it, if you're listening to us a different way, make sure you download it. The best of sports, music, talk, and more right on your smartphone. Download it for free and take CBS Sports Radio 1140 and us with you everywhere. We're also streaming live on all social media platforms. Of course, our video is not what we used to make it because of our remote broadcast and issues there. So you can go up and watch us, though, on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and also on Facebook and Periscope via Twitter. So wherever you want to watch or listen to us, you can find us, and we certainly appreciate all of you being here today. And it was good to get some live sports. And if you want great Raiders content, by the way, talking about news and a look at the draft fallout, visit the site that started all of this, silverandblacktoday.com, the only independent Raiders news site based in the capital of Raider Nation, Las Vegas, Nevada. Visit us at silverandblacktoday.com. Okay, busy show ahead, and now I bring in the guys that, of course, is the two co-hosts here on the show with me, Mr. Chaz Osborne and Kelly Kreiner. How you guys doing? Kelly, I know you and I spent 8 hours on the air over Thursday, Friday. It took me yesterday to kind of get back to into my sorts, but how's everybody doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Good,
doing
Chaz.
great,
What's
man.
up, bud? Yeah?
I'm excited. I thought it was a great draft. I'm excited.
Yeah, we got I tell you, we got a lot to talk about. And of course, the Raiders overall had quite the haul. They didn't go past the fourth round. We'll talk a little bit on why Mike Mayock said that was the case. But if you look at the draft overall, guys, going into what we talked about it so much leading up to it. Kelly, you did a bunch of stories up on silverandblacktoday.com looking position by position. Were there any big surprises for you overall with the draft? I think mock drafts and all of that, they didn't hold as close mostly as they have in the past year. And I think that's a little bit to do with the times we're in. But overall, what were surprises for you, Kelly?
Well, everybody was saying that the mock drafts weren't what they usually are, but the guys that do mock drafts had better years this year than a lot of people
The
have in the
professionals.
past. Yeah, and if you look at the top 12 picks, I mean, no one was a shock at the top 12 pick. There were a couple, obviously a couple cornerbacks that got taken in different spots. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yeah, this draft wasn't as crazy and as everybody wants to make it out to be. It actually kind of fell along the lines you thought it was going to.
Yeah. Chaz, how about you? Any surprises for you?
Yeah, not really. I think maybe the fact that they couldn't really bring these guys in and do the interviews and do the medicals and do all the things they usually do. That probably made everybody stay a little closer to home and go with a safer pick. Maybe they thought in their minds.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think Kelly, you're right. And one of our frequent guests here, Benjamin Albright, who does Broncos radio out in KOA, and also does national media as well. He was dead on again. I mean, he's one of those guys who puts in an exorbitant amount of time tracking the league, tracking college players, and he really did a good job. So I think for the fan and mock drafts there, like in the ESPN contest and stuff like that, maybe they were a bit off, but other than that, I think it held pretty true. And I thought overall, the virtual reality type draft, this whole thing of, Roger Goodell in his basement, lounging on his chair, his easy chair and all that stuff. That was fine. I did think though, it is a TV event, right? We know that. We know the NFL makes money off the draft. With the switch to the virtual nature, though, I thought, that from a viewing perspective, and we were on the air, of course, for the first two rounds, but looking at it, it was a little bit disjointed, and it seemed, like it was slower in some aspects. But I think that's because you didn't have talking heads together in the same room, being able to talk to each other and having that social interaction piece of it. And that just made it different for me. But what can you do? I mean, hey, look, nothing is normal right now. And so it's not a surprise that the NFL draft wasn't normal either.
Yeah, it had a different feel to it, but I mean, everybody was kind of expecting something crazy to happen, some apocalyptic, somebody's, a pick will get skipped, somebody's, internet's gonna go out, and nothing that crazy really happened. It pretty much for what they could have expected, it kind of went off without a hitch.
Yeah, and we saw.
My favorite part was you're talking about Mike Mayock. He said they spent 4 or 5 days in a row doing drills with the scouts and analytics guy, and Gruden was on there, and they were preparing for every scenario. So you got to imagine every team probably did that same sort of thing.
Oh yeah, and overall, I mean, there were some great moments created by the virtual nature. Of course, the biggest one, and when it happened, Kelly and I, and Paul Ihander on CBS Sports Radio, when we were on the air. During one of the breaks, I texted Kelly because I said, "Did you see Bill Belichick when they cut to him and his dog was sitting in his chair?" Right, and
Yeah.
this resulted in, I think it was NBC went out to his Nantucket home and did a story on his dog, right, because it was so funny, and it was a lighthearted moment. It was so Bill Belichick esque that I think it became one of the great moments of the draft, along with. And we'll talk about it later. Raiders draft pick Henry Ruggs III and his Old Spice robe. But there were several moments like that were really, really fun. And it was just such a well-needed distraction, I think, for Americans going through all that we've been through over the last 6 weeks. So to get some live sports, yes, it was just a draft and everybody was remote. But I think it was something that we could all interact with. That's why the ratings were so high. I haven't seen day 2 and day 3, day 2 ratings, but day 3 ratings really don't matter because that's just a lightning round. But I think overall, people just wanted something new. They wanted new content. They wanted to have something. They wanted something hopeful. And if you're a team or a fan of a team like the Raiders, you got to have some fun, number one, and number two, you got to have a little bit of hope when there hasn't been a lot of hope. Some of our leaders aren't giving us the hope that I think we should get or put out there. So I think this overall was great therapy for Raiders fans and for NFL fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I mean, yeah, it's just the draft, but it's something.
Yeah.
Day 2 ratings were a record for day 2 ratings. Obviously, you expected them to be. The one thing that I found funny was that the gambling handle in Nevada on the draft equaled a Thursday night football game during the season. So There's a nice appetite out there to gamble on anything, including the draft.
Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, we all love football and NFL having the free agency period and now the draft. We've had a lot to talk about and a lot going on. So at least the NFL is still keeping us going with a little bit of sports.
The other thing I liked about all of this, and again, we're talking about the draft. We're going to get into the deep Raiders content here shortly, but we're just kind of starting off talking overall about the NFL draft and how it went. When you look at it all, the one thing I really liked is because in a normal draft, every network, so ESPN and of course NFL Network for the most part, they kind of had separate coverage. Because of all of this, they combined coverage, and I actually like that because you get to see all of the pundits, all the experts, all of the personalities, and you like some more at some stations and channels, you like some more at the other. I liked that cross pollination between all of them because it was all in one spot. And I hope that in the future, I know these networks usually sell a lot of advertising, so they probably want their own inventories. But I actually thought that was a really good outcome of all of this.
Yeah, I mean it's a new it's like I said it's a new thing. We've never done anything like this before, so it was kind of nice to see just like the different idea and stuff to kind of how it was gonna be handled. But all the coaches and everything are talking about how they actually liked this a lot more than they thought they were going to with the whole virtual setup. They liked being at home. They liked having the family and everything around. So some of these changes that we've seen now might not be going away anytime soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that'll
I feel like these guys are also they've got to get out. It's a big production, like you said, Scott. They're gonna bring it back next year, and obviously they made that announcement that Las Vegas will be hosting again in 2022. It's a big production. They're gonna bring it back and they're gonna keep doing it that big like they used to do it.
Well, and it's a moneymaker, right? So you yes, you make money on the advertising on
Yeah.
television, but you also make money in the local event periods. And if it's a party like we saw in Nashville 2 years ago, now is interesting. I do think, Kelly, you're right. Some things will change, but Chaz, I agree with you as well that look, it's a big event. The NFL, I think, when they can allow it to come back, which hopefully is next season, then they'll do that. And I think that we learned a lot from it clearly, but at the same time, it's all about, football is a social thing. It's going to a game, it's doing all of that. And so eventually that's what you want to get back to. And that includes the NFL events like the draft, and like the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl. The Super Bowl is a ways away, so we don't have to worry about it just yet, but it'll be interesting. I think overall, though, I enjoyed the coverage and really thought they did a good job. There was some controversy real quick, and that was with some of the graphics that they put up for the players. There was some interesting facts that they would put up there, say mother survived cancer or whatever it may be, which is good. You get to know a little bit about the person. But there were some that were kind of objectionable, came from an area with a high crime rate. Well, it's like, well, okay, what does that exactly mean? And did that mold the player? So, but those are things that are easy to second guess when you're on the other side of the television and you're not the one putting it together in a very strange situation where everything is remote and it isn't the same as it used to be. So we'll do that. But hey, listen, when we come back from the break coming up here, what we're going to do is we're going to get into the Raiders draft picks, right? We're going to talk about how they did. We're going to talk first about round number 1 when we come back from the break. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey everyone, it's the Playmaker. is helping Southern Nevada stay connected together. For more, go to radio.com/stay connected.
More than ever, we need to laugh. Good thing the radio.com app brings the funny. On radio.com, you can listen to your favorite hometown morning show wherever you are, or nonstop stand-up on the Comedy Now channel. And hilarious podcasts like Curious with Josh Peck and ID10T with Chris Hardwick. All available 24/7 and all just a click away. So come on, lighten up and laugh a little, or a lot. Radio.com on your desktop, or download the free app now.
Radio.com is helping Las Vegas stay connected.
Hi, this is Cammie Christensen from Westgate, Las Vegas. This is a challenging time, but we take care of each other in Vegas. If you or anyone you know needs food assistance, or if you would just like to help, visit 3square.org. Together, we will come back bigger, better, and Vegas stronger. Thank you, and stay safe.
A celebration of people coming together for the good of our community. For more, go to radio.com/stay connected.
CBS Sports Radio. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. Coming to you live also on the radio.com app, YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope if you want to listen to us and watch us there. Usually you could see us in the studio, but we haven't been in the studio in several weeks. So now it's just a still image, but we're still there. We always have there's great chats going on right now in YouTube about the Raiders draft picks as well. So it's interesting. Go there, have fun. Also, some news for you guys in case you missed it after the draft yesterday. The Raiders did sign some undrafted free agents, starting with kicker Dominic Ellerbe from Utah State. That's right. They want to bring somebody in to compete with Daniel Carlson, who had a great 2018 when they picked him up. 19 fell back a little bit, so they're going to bring him in to compete. Also, a local product, Javen White from UNLV. He's a linebacker safety, and they've said that he's going to play linebacker. Wide receiver George Mariner. He was Jordan Love's big target at Utah State. Long snapper Liam McCullough from Ohio State. He was a long snapper on full scholarship as a freshman when he attended Ohio State. So I think he's a pretty good long snapper. He was a finalist for the Patrick Manley Award, which is given to the best long snapper in the nation. Also, defensive tackle Mike Panasic and a tight end Nick Bowers, and a Saluki, another cornerback from Southern Illinois, Madre Harper, who was really technically had some issues and had injuries, but he is a guy that the Raiders signed in free agency as well after the draft concluded. So that's some players to add to your list. But first, we want to talk about the first round, right? This was the big sexy. It was the number 12 and 19 picks that the Raiders had. Of course, that pick they got from the Chicago Bears and the Khalil Mack trade was part of that. And when you look at what their strategy going into the draft and how they eventually landed Henry Ruggs, which is something I had said for a month or so that I thought that they would do because of the division, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, no matter how much you hate them, they are the class of the division, and they will be for a while until someone can beat them. And it's something that Mike Mayock has talked about several times. And here's when we had some press calls with him after each day of the draft. And when someone asked him what they were doing and why they were trying to draft these faster, more dynamic players, here is what Mike Mayock said about that exact subject.
Let's be honest. The entire league is chasing the Kansas City Chiefs, but we're in the same division. And they just keep getting faster and more athletic and more dynamic every time you turn around. So other teams have to do the same. We're trying to do that on both sides of the line of scrimmage. We feel like, obviously, Ruggs is a difference maker yesterday. On the offensive side, Ruggs is a difference maker. Lynn Bowden, we just talked about him and what we think bring to the table. You know, Bowden can return punts. Ruggs can return kickoffs. You know, we're trying to do more than just draft guys that play one thing. So versatility is important. But really, the overarching thing is John and I look at each other and say, is he a Raider? And we think what we're trying to develop is some toughness. We talked about foundation players last year. You got to love ball. So I think on both sides of the line of scrimmage and over both days, we've got guys with a little edge to them, guys that love football, guys that have some speed, and above all, they love the game and they're tough.
Well, there you go. So Mike Mayock talking about chasing the Chiefs, right? And how it molds your roster. Something, by the way, Al Davis was obsessed with. He was obsessed with the AFC West, clearly, because he wanted to win it every year. And so he was always on top of that. So we go into the first round, guys. At 12, they go with Henry Ruggs III. They had their choice of any of the top three, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, or Henry Ruggs. Again, based on what we had heard about Gruden and what we had heard about what they were trying to do and why he was a good fit, were you guys surprised? I know, Kelly, we were on live when it happened, and you were a little surprised because you had Jeudy ranked number one, which I think most people did. But were you surprised at all knowing that John Gruden was involved in the pick?
A little surprised, but not much, because I said from like we first started doing this, Jeudy was number one for me, but Jeudy, Ruggs, and Lamb are all in that same little. It's basically pick which one you like. There's not a big drop off in talent, no matter which one you get, and obviously Gruden, he wanted the speed, so he went with Ruggs. So while like I said, I liked Jeudy a little more. I see this pick and I like this pick because for me, my biggest thing was get one of the top three because the drop off after that was something I didn't want to see. Do you get the fourth, fifth, or sixth wideout? Stick in that top tier.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And Chaz, I mean, you look at Ruggs, and I think unfairly he gets categorized just as a speed guy when he has so many other strengths. Yeah, is he the technical route runner as good as Jerry Jeudy? No, but he's got those other intangibles. He's got that next level of speed, that explosion off the line. But I don't think they miss anything there. I'm biased. I've been saying it all along that's who I'd like to see, and I thought that he fit the best there. But for you, was it a surprise?
Yeah, no, I was with you. I really wanted that speed. Mayock and Gruden, they kind of have this formula, right? They pick guys from successful programs that, high level of competition and leaders in the locker room and on the field and in the community, and that's something they saw with Ruggs. They saw a great work ethic and high character. And Gruden, he said that him and Mayock were united on this pick. So I was all for it. I was hoping we'd get two speedsters in the first round there, two fast, a fast offense and a fast defensive player.
Yeah, and it looked like maybe, as the draft board unfolded, we thought maybe, wow, because CeeDee Lamb was still there until the Cowboys grabbed him at 17. We thought, well, could they double dip at wide receiver, even though they needed that cornerback, because those guys fell a little bit. But we kind of thought going in that might happen. And at the Raiders, if something didn't drastically change ahead of them, they should have at least two of the three available. They ended up having all three available. But I think Henry Ruggs there too, the dynamic nature of his game, what he's able to do, the fact that he fits in well with what Gruden, at least in his head, wants to do, was certainly a good fit for them. And also, he gets, I think, unfairly, because you look at numbers, you can manipulate numbers how you want. But if you look deep down and you look at what he was able to do there as not the number one target all the time, I thought it was pretty good. And I think that he's going to fit in nicely there, and we'll see how it all works out. But a great selection. I was very happy with that. As Kelly said, they had two needs going in. They needed a wide receiver, and they needed a defensive back. So with the 19th pick, that many thought that they would trade down on and maybe go get somebody else in the second round, they made the first surprise for me in the draft. And even though the night of the draft, I really thought it was a huge reach, I still think it was a little bit of a reach, but they liked him. And they went with Damon Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State. And I'll start with you on this one, Kelly. Do you feel any better about it today than you did when we announced that on Thursday?
Well, I mean, it was a reach, but I mean, he's still a good player, So I mean, it's not like they pulled what the Texans did last year and drafted Titus Howard in the first round. I mean, Arnett to me and everybody but Mayock and Gruden was a second round corner. So it's not like they drafted somebody nobody had heard of. And part of the reason he was a second round corner was some of the off field issues that he had. So if you're fine with those, you're taking those out of there. The problem I still have, though, is Mayock's like they were receiving several calls to trade down, and they didn't trade down. There were two more corners taken in that round, and neither team would have taken Arnett because he was a polar opposite of what they drafted. with Gladney and Igbenogany, they were speed guys. Arnett's not a speed guy; he's more of a physical big guy. So I mean, they could have traded down somewhere in the first round and still got Arnett. I think 47 was the highest I'd seen anybody else ranked Arnett. So I mean, you could have went from 19 to 24, 25. He still would have been there, and you could have got something else.
Yeah, well, they said, obviously it's not a reach if he's the highest rated player you have on your board, right? So, they said they liked him as much as Okuda, and they think he's the best tackler in the draft. So he's got good instincts. He's got that toughness. Like I said last week, Mike Mayock, his mock draft used to be out there, one of the top mock drafts that everybody looked at, and now it's not there. So he might have had a few of these guys a lot higher, and then that would have pushed their stock, up into the first round. Some guys we think are second or third rounders just because Mayock's mock draft isn't out there like it used to be. So, if it's the highest rated guy they've got on their board, then it's not a reach, is it?
Well,
it can still be a reach. It's just not a reach for them. They don't think it's a reach. But, like I said, and Mayock said he didn't feel it was a reach. Well, of course he didn't. If he was a reach, he wouldn't have made the
pick. No, that's exactly right. And I agree with you, Chaz, to the point where, and we're going to get into this more later because one of the themes throughout the draft has been for the Raiders, we don't care what anybody else ranks their players at. We're going to rank them on our system. And if you think we drafted them too high, we really don't care because that's where we had them. We can disagree or agree on whether or not there was a better player available, but for whatever reason, under their evaluation standards and their scouting, they thought that player was better. And certainly, I think you walk away from the first round of the NFL draft, and you said it best, Kelly, on Thursday. Look, going in, they needed a top end wide receiver, and they needed to address the cornerback position, and they accomplished both goals. Whether or not you would have liked another player, the fact is, the need they have, they addressed. They addressed it right at the top of the draft, which was very encouraging to see. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the first round and what it means for the Raiders. We're going to be joined by our team member, Evan Groat from Just Pod Baby. If you don't subscribe to his podcast, do so. He'll be back with us right after the break. We'll talk more Raiders draft first round. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
everyone for supporting your neighbors, working together, and staying home for Nevada.
This message funded by a grant through the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services, aired in cooperation with the Nevada Broadcasters Association and this station.
30.
Unsafe sleep conditions
5.
cause serious injury and even death to infants. Never sleep with your baby on a sofa, in a chair, or in an adult bed. Protect the baby you love from becoming a tragic statistic. The only safe place for your baby to sleep is alone, on its back, in a crib, and in your room.
Baby out
For
of
more
here.
information,
10,
visit
stand by.
cribsforkids.org. That's cribsforkids.org. This message is sponsored by the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, aired in cooperation with the Nevada Broadcasters Association and this station.
CBS Sports Radio.
Hey, this is Eric Allen. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
All right. Eric Allen bringing us back in. Speaking of defensive backs, right? We are back here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and worldwide, or I should say nationwide on the radio.com, worldwide on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. All right. We are talking first round of the NFL draft. And how did the Raiders do? How did the Las Vegas Raiders do in their first ever draft as the Las Vegas Raiders? We're going to bring the fourth member of the discussion in right now, and that, of course, is our good friend Evan Groat. Evan is the host of Just Pod Baby. It is a Raiders podcast. You can catch it on Silver and Black today. You can also subscribe to it anywhere you get your podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, you name it, you'll find it. Evan also is a contributor on several websites, including ours at silverandblacktoday.com. Evan, man, how you feeling after the draft is over?
Well, I'm feeling tired. I know that because I was staying up over. I'm an East Coast guy, so these drafts, the first round, the second round, they don't get over till after midnight for me. So I'm happy. Last night I was able to go to bed at a reasonable time, and so I was very tired. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good. And man, it's like, yeah, that's the thing is the draft weekend, although it's nothing compared for us, at least, Evan, I get you with the time difference. Absolutely. Totally get that. For us, we were expecting to be in the middle of it down on that Las Vegas Strip. We thought it would be much longer days because we would have been out milling around, having fun, meeting folks and all that kind of stuff. So it was different for us, but still exhausting because mentally and being on the air, talking, as Kelly will tell you, talking for 4 straight hours is a lot. It takes a lot out of you, especially when you're trying to keep up with the players and all of that. But when we look at the Raiders, Evan, want to get your take on this because I was very happy with Henry Ruggs, clearly, because I'm just in that camp. Damon Arnett, I was a little disappointed with at first. I slept on it, did more. I frankly just did not know as much about him. As I researched him more, I was happier with the pick. I still thought, like Kelly said, that a little bit of a reach. But hey, if they thought that he was the 19th best player in the draft and he was their number one cornerback left on their list, then fine. But overall, your impressions with round one with Ruggs and with Arnett?
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to the show, and also I listened to your podcast that you did over the weekend. So I kind of understand your thoughts on Ruggs. But listen, for me, this whole process, I was a Jerry Jeudy guy, and I'm going to stand by that. I totally understand the reasoning behind the pick of Henry Ruggs. I heard everything Mayock had to say about the pick. He will force defenses to roll coverage his way. His presence will open up things for guys like Darren Waller. It'll benefit the run game with Josh Jacobs. And I get all of that. But for me personally, I still would have liked to seen the pick be Jerry Jeudy or even CeeDee Lamb. I just think that they are a little bit more well-rounded receivers. But at the end of the day, based on what I've heard from Mayock, is that the speed factor was just too much to overlook. Now, I also want to say that while it may sound like I'm unhappy with the pick, I'm not. Obviously, I liked Ruggs also through the process. How can you argue with a guy with his abilities? I mean, the 4.2 speed. You see what Tyreek Hill is able to do in Kansas City with his game-breaking abilities. He's very sure-handed. He did not have many drop balls during his time at Alabama. It sounds like he's going to be used heavily in the return game, so he kind of has a multi-purpose as well. And although he wasn't the go-to target at Alabama, when he did touch the ball, he was scoring the touchdown every 4.1 touches. So, he's dynamic, and that's really what this offense needs.
Yeah, I think, Evan, what you said is exactly a lot of what you said, Kelly, right? Which was you look at the receivers overall, and you would be happy with any one of the three. But distinctly, if you look at well-roundedness as far as less work needs to be done in a certain area, Judy and Lamb kind of stuck out to me. And I agree with that, Evan and Kelly. I don't have any disagreement with that. I just had the gut feel that they were going to go with the speed overall. But yeah, I mean, it's a good take. And I'm glad you're sticking with your original pick, that you would have rather had them take Judy, because I think a lot of people are there. At the end of the day, at least they didn't take like a lineman or something like that high in the draft. They needed to address the wide receiver position, and they got one. But Kelly and Evan, both of you, when you look at Ruggs, what's the first thing that he's got to work on to really become an impact at this level?
Well, I think with Ruggs is, he's a little bit undersized. He's not quite as big as Judy and Lamb. So my first concern, obviously, is how is he going to handle, a physical cornerback, bumping him and pressing him at the line of scrimmage. So I think he's going to have to get a little bit more physical. He's going to have to be able to win against press coverage. And I know because of his speed, he may not see a ton of guys pressing him at the line, but guys are going to want to challenge him. So I think he's got to get a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger.
Yeah, for me it was the press. The press, getting off press is going to be his biggest thing. Also the other thing for his speed, a lot of his deep stuff is like slants and posts where he takes a lot of yak and yards after the catch. You don't see him run like the 9 route and stuff like that as often. I think he's going to have to. He'll add that to the arsenal in the pros a little more, so he's got to work on that as well.
Well, okay, so we're there. There we are with the receiver. Now we get to number 19, and we're going to talk about Damon Arnett, the cornerback of Ohio State. Now, this pick, I think, was polarizing at first. I think a lot of Raider fans, they actually liked it because maybe they weren't as familiar with him. They saw Ohio State, and yeah, you're not a slouch if you play cornerback at Ohio State. Now, I know people bring up Garyon Conley, but don't compare players that didn't make it versus one who haven't had stepped on the field yet in the pros. But with this pick, even they must have had him rated highest, which of the guys left. We were sitting there wondering, well, you had Fulton, you had all these guys sitting there, guys that we've gotten to know in depth over the year and really had in our top, 5 to 8 to even 10 guys. And they didn't go that direction. When that pick came across, Evan, and you saw guys that were still on the board, did it give you a sinking feeling a bit?
Well, I think my feeling was a lot like of other Raider fans. I was a little bit shocked. Arnett was not a guy that I spent a lot of time on during the, my draft research and whatnot. I think there was a lot of differing opinions out there among who was the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th best cornerbacks in this draft. So to me, if Mayock feels that Arnett fits their system, he has the traits that they are looking for, then you have to trust they made the right pick. Now, I share the same thoughts as Kelly. I heard him talking about my only disappointment with this pick is that they weren't able to trade back. Mayock spoke about how he fielded several calls from teams wanting to possibly trade up to 19. And I think at the end of the day, Mayock didn't feel comfortable with trading back because he didn't know if he could still get his guy. And based on, several different draft rankings and whatnot that we've all read, Arnett was not considered a first-round pick. So the likelihood that he would have been there later in round 1 seems to be pretty high to me. So that's the only disappointing part to me with this pick of Arnett.
This is Jim Rome. Join me in the jungle tomorrow at noon Eastern and 9 Pacific.
We've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back. We are back. Thank goodness to Mark Bonilla, our producer, engineer, who got us back on the air. He is a magic man, always amazing to begin with. But as we broadcast all live from our homes and from other locations, when the computer at the station decides to have a mind of its own and go away, and you're not there, you have to become a magician, and that's exactly what Mark did. So thank you to Mark for doing that, and thank you guys all for sticking with us. We apologize for that, the inconvenience. We were having a great discussion with Evan Groat. Want to apologize to him as well for having to cut him out early, but we just couldn't help it. But we're back, and so this final hour we will continue. And joining us this hour is our good friend, senior NFL columnist at silverandblacktoday.com, also columnist contributor over at Bleacher Report, where you of course see his work every day as well. We are back with Mr. Moton, and we're gonna go all deep on avocados and things like that. So we'll see what happens. But
Scott,
yeah,
I lost Mo.
we lost Mo. See, what are you gonna do? Hey, you just gotta laugh about it. But we'll try to get Mo back on the air here. And you might hear Mark dialing and all that kind of stuff, but that's okay. We'll get him back as soon as he dials out.
I mean, do you want me to dial him?
Yeah, go ahead and dial him. We'll dial him. We got to get Mo on. Yeah,
I can dial. I can dial him off air. Just
okay. Yeah, go grab him.
All right. So everything you're hearing right now is not on air.
Okay. So we're back. But we're gonna get Mo on the line here. So stay with us. Again, it's an audible, right? You get to the line of scrimmage and the computer decides to do something of its own nature, then that's the way it goes. So we're gonna get Mo back on the line. But we want to definitely get to reviewing this draft and talking about what's going on despite the technical issues we're having. So we're going to talk about the third round, right? So because the third round to me was a home run for the most part. Right, you start with Lynn Bowden, of course, the kind of slash the Swiss Army knife of the draft when it comes to the Raiders. Going to use him as a running back, but wide receiver, played quarterback, an interesting athlete. Then Bryan Edwards out of South Carolina at number 81. Those two back-to-back picks at wide receiver. And then the one that's a head scratcher still to me, and I that I don't trust Mayock or that I don't think Mayock does a good job. I don't see the Tanner Muse pick still at 100 as a good pick. And they can prove me wrong, and that's fine. Time will tell, but I just don't understand it. We'll get a little bit into that as well. So we'll get Mo back on the line. But, guys, if you look at that third
are you there?
Draft, the third round of the draft, you look at Bowden. Let's start with him because Kelly, you had been talking about Bowden all the time. We were talking with different folks about the draft as we were leading up to it on the air and off the air, and you had talked a lot about him. What you kind of were fascinated by it to begin with, weren't you?
Yeah, because he's just such a great athlete. You knew he wasn't going to play quarterback in the NFL, so you were kind of wondering where they were going to move him to. Wide receiver was the most obvious option. The fact that they announced him as a running back and said they're going to play him at running back is really interesting. But you're going to see him do a little bit of everything. He'll be.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Kelly. Sorry, Mo, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, we got him back. All right, so Mo, we were just going through. Again, we're joined by Mo Moton, our senior NFL columnist at silverandblacktoday.com and contributor over at Bleacher Report as well. And Mo, we were talking about the third round as we were waiting until you get on the phone, but we want to step back and get, first of all, right off the top of your head, your first impression of the Raiders draft overall. Did they address the needs adequately enough to go into the 2020 season to make that next step?
Well, it depends. If you're not a Derek Carr supporter, you would probably say no. But if you knew that the Raiders were going to stick with Carr and just kind of supply weapons, then I would say yes. My biggest thing is, as you know, I've been listening to you, and of course you're a big Henry Ruggs guy. Of course I would have went a different direction. But again, as I said on Twitter, I understand what the Raiders did or Raiders wanted to do with speed. So I get the Henry Ruggs pick. You talked about Bowden, offensive weapon. Doesn't really have a position. As Kelly just said, he's not going to play quarterback. Obviously, he will reportedly play running back. A lot of people were saying, well, what are you going to do at wide receiver? It's a little crowded. He's going to probably be Josh Jacobs' spell. He's going to get some carries, maybe 10, 12 carries per game, catch out of the backfield. Bryan Edwards is a pick I really like, too. As Mayock said, you got Henry Ruggs with the speed. You got Bryan Edwards with the size and physicality. So I think they addressed the wide receiver need adequately, which is what a lot of people were hoping for. And then you have Amik Robertson, which was one of my favorite picks in the draft. I think he'll eventually be the slot. I've been screaming, you need to move LaMarcus Joyner out of the slot and move him to safety. Well, Amik Robertson could be that guy if they move Joyner eventually, which I hope they do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Again, we're joined by Moton from Bleacher Report and silverandblacktoday.com, of course. And you were talking, I mean, if you talk about this draft again, for me, the big outlier, like Arnett, I was a little bit disappointed in at first. I kind of revised my view on that after, because I just wasn't as familiar with him, right? So when you're ignorant on something, you don't necessarily have the best opinion on it. So I changed a little bit my tune on that one. Did they reach for him? I think a little bit, but if they wanted him, they wanted him. With Tanner Muse, though, look, I have people telling me, yeah, but he's a great special teams player. And that may be true. And hey, listen, he's a kid. When he gets on the field, we'll see what he can do. But at pick 100, I have an issue with drafting a guy who would play in the NFL, not safety, but really weak side linebacker. And there's a guy named Corey Littleton they just signed who plays weak side linebacker. You can talk about depth. I don't think he's got the ability to play that position consistently in the NFL. What's your thoughts on the Muse pick?
Like y'all, was a little confused. I made a joke about, the Raiders didn't pick up Isaiah Simmons. They picked up Muse for versatility. And a lot of people, of course, on Twitter took that seriously. But Mayock said he's going to learn and weak side, and he's obviously going to start off on special teams. I would just push back on a guy that's going to play special teams primarily in his first year as a third-round pick. Maybe they really liked him, so they didn't want to lose him as they did other picks. But to me, I just feel like they should have gone with the safety with Damaris Randall having 1 year left, or a defensive tackle with Malik Collins having 1 year left and Jonathan Hankins on a contract year. And it's like they should have went in one of those two directions. But again, they like Tanner Muse and what he brings to the table. I don't think, like you, I don't think he's going to play safety. A lot of draft gurus also would agree with that his safety days are pretty much behind him. He's going to be playing linebacker for the most part in special teams. But again, for a third-round pick, I would have went with a player who may be a more rotational player than Tanner Muse, who's probably not going to see the field on defense unless there's an injury.
Yeah, again, we're talking about Moton from Bleacher Report, silverandblacktoday.com. And then you mentioned, and Kelly, you jump in on this one too, because Kelly and I talked a lot about Amik Robertson and, of course, John Simmons out of Clemson. There's mixed reaction. I like him. They need depth. They need to develop some young guards in this system. You have age, you have contracts, you have all sorts of things that the Raiders need to look at. I think that's where fans sometimes forget is you say, why are we drafting this position? We have somebody there. But to your point, Mo, about the defensive front, guys on 1 year deals, they might not be here in 2 years. So you need to look to fill spots. But Robertson overall, smaller in stature, but this is a guy that when you watch him, man, he plays tough. He punches much higher than his weight. What is it about him that you think the Raiders see that, besides that physicality, besides the amazing ball skills, what is it about him that's going to make him maybe be the exception to the rule when it comes to size and jumping up and playing at the NFL level?
I mean, he's feisty, and of course they talked about that. They like the physicality, and I don't know if you saw the video with the call with him and Gruden. Gruden asked him, bring the juice, basically. And I think that's what you want to see out of your slot linebacker and the instincts, of course. And I talked about that on Twitter, that, yeah, he has the interceptions, he has the pass breakup, he is short, but he has the instinct to move inside. Now, he played mostly outside Louisiana Tech, so we'll see. But Mayock you say he's going to be a slot, but I think the versatility is also what attracted the Raiders to him, that he can play outside and inside. Of course, most flights in the NFL level at 5'8", you're going to be inside. But they also talked about taking the ball away and how the Raiders defense struggles with forcing turnovers, and he does that pretty well. So, and on the, I believe on the conference call, he said, if you need me to shadow Tyreek Hill, I'll do that. And that's the guy you want. I'll do anything. If you want me to play it outside, I'll do it. Inside, I'll do it. You want me to guard Tyreek Hill, I'll do that too. And I think, again, do it all, fight, be physical. That's a Raider pick right there.
Hey, Mo, it's Kelly. Now that we've got the draft talk out of the way, let's talk about something that's important going down right now. The New Orleans Saints are in negotiations to sign Jameis Winston to a 1-year contract. If you have the next Steve Young and Taysom Hill on your squad, why would you offer a 1-year contract to Jameis Winston?
You and I both know this. No one believes in the Saints and this Taysom Hill is going to be the guy after Drew Brees talk. No one believed it. When I saw the notification popped up, I thought about you and I said, Kelly's going to jump all over this in the 2021 fantasy football draft for Jameis Winston because he's going to blow up. But I'm definitely happy for him going to New Orleans. It's a great spot for him.
Yeah, Taysom Hill just signed a 2-year deal worth $21 million, with $16 million guaranteed. Why are
I'm still like, I think you said this. Once you lie to yourself about something, and the Saints have been lying to themselves that Taysom Hill is that next guy, you got to do things so you can believe in the lie and kind of justify it. So I still think, Jameis Winston's going to be the guy to use.
I just don't understand how they keep doing this with the salary cap. Like, I'm good at math, and this math doesn't work out. They just keep signing people, and it seems like they never hit that number.
Yeah, you're totally right on that. The Saints aren't fooling. First, like I said, the Saints aren't fooling anybody, but we'll see how it shakes out.
Mo Moton. Hey, Mo, look, before we let you go, when you look at this draft and what the Raiders were able to do, there's a lot of national draft experts who are not giving them high marks. I overall think they did pretty well with some question marks, but I think they addressed a lot of their needs. As they head into whenever camp, and Mike Mayock said they probably won't see these guys until formal training camp towards the end of the summer. When they head into camp, what other big questions? Now, we don't know what they'll do between now and then. There still could be trades or that, but what key issue do you look at after this draft that they still need to address for the coming season?
As far as key issues, I wouldn't say it's super pressing, but I know a lot of Raiders fans wanted a power back behind Josh Jacobs. I want to know how John Gruden is going to use Lynn Bowden Jr. And again, we said he's going to be the backup running back there and take some carries behind Josh Jacobs, but I think that pick is important because it's going to show how creative John Gruden is. And I know we talked about John Gruden as an offensive guru, and he has all these plays, and this is the one player that's going to show John Gruden's creativity. Now, at the end of the year, he doesn't have barely makes an impact, and you're looking like, hey, would you draft him in the third round for if you're not going to use him, if you're not going to be creative with him? I think that pick and how they use him is going to be important to me because that'll show me how far John Gruden's willing to open up his playbook and be creative with this offense. Because on paper, this should be a top 10 offense, and I think both Gruden can put this offense over the top if he's involved. If Gruden puts scripts up some plays for him, whether he's a running back or a pass catcher.
Yeah, and Mo, I think you and I tweeted something very similar in the last couple of days, and that was, listen, you can say all you want. Oh, Carr's got all the weapons now, but so does John Gruden. Do not forget the coach's role, especially when they're running the offense, and how you use personnel, what sets you show, and what plays you draw up. So I agree with you 100% on that. Yes, Carr will have the tools, but the coaching staff has to use them correctly. So we appreciate that comment as well. All right, Mo, well, listen, man, thanks for hanging with us through all the technical difficulties, and I know we'll talk to you real soon. Take care.
Well, no problem. Thanks for having me.
See you, Mo.
All right, Mo Moton, our senior NFL columnist at silverandblacktoday.com, also from Bleacher Report, where he contributes all the time. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll roll on. We'll talk a little bit about that offense and Derek Carr and John Gruden and what they're going to do with it. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio 1140 is helping Southern Nevada stay connected together. For more, go to
Stand by.
radio.com/stay connected.
CBS Sports Radio.
The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with a radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. If you're still with us, thank you. We had that issue last hour. We appreciate you guys sticking with us. Great conversation happening on YouTube as well. So we're streaming there, streaming on the radio.com app as always. So we appreciate you guys being with us. And again, thanks to Moton, our guest, as well as Evan Groat, who got cut off, unfortunately. But we appreciate him chiming in on the Raiders draft as well. Wonder how you feel. Let us know inside the chat there on Twitter or on Facebook what your impressions are of the draft for the Raiders and how they did. And we're going to talk about, obviously the offense here. You're talking about Henry Ruggs III. You're talking about Lynn Bowden. You're talking about Bryan Edwards on the offensive side. So the Raiders knew what they needed. Everybody knew they had to get better at receiver. Everybody knew they needed to get faster. They needed to get more dynamic, as Mike Mayock said, and John Gruden has also repeated. So to me, when you look at all of this, what I'm seeing from people, of course, the 50% of people who love Derek Carr and the 50% of people who don't like Derek Carr and think he should be gone, is this argument again of, well, he's got all the tools now, there's no excuses, right? Which is true at one point, but at the same time, as I said to Mo before the break, guys, there's no excuse for John Gruden either. You cannot leave out the coaching equation here. Yes, the quarterback position is the most important position in sports, in my view. But if you look at that, John Gruden's got to give him. He's got these tools too. So what's he going to come up with, guys, with a Lynn Bowden? And how is that going to help Derek Carr? And how is that going to free people up along with the other wide receivers like Ruggs, like Darren Waller at a tight end spot, Josh Jacobs in the running back spot? But when you look at this, am I wrong on that? I mean, there's not, this isn't all on Derek Carr.
No, it's not all on Carr, but the quarterback always gets the heap of the praise when you win and the heap of the, negative when you lose. It doesn't matter what your coach is doing. You're always looking at that quarterback first. And the quarterback doesn't have a 10-year deal.
Yeah. Well, we talk about it a lot. Every time we're talking about Carr, we bring up Gruden, and he's the one calling the shots. So, they do get equal blame. You played that clip of Mayock earlier talking about, trying to compete with the Chiefs, trying to catch up with the Chiefs. And I think, building your team just to go after one other team, that can have adverse consequences. You're always looking at the Chiefs, and then you end up playing the Steelers or somebody in the playoffs. So I think John Gruden and the Raiders, John Gruden has a great scheme, and they're going to build the best Raider team that they can. And I think they're getting close to that goal already.
Yeah, but I would disagree with you, Chaz. I don't think they get equal blame. I think Derek Carr is unfairly criticized for a lot of things that John Gruden sometimes. Oh, you said you should. Okay, good. Gotcha. So to me though, but that's the point. And I think, I'm going to go on a record here and 50% of you will hate me for him, but I don't care. I think Derek Carr is going to have a huge year. I really do. I think not only because of these additional tools and maybe John Gruden opens up the offense more to give him some more opportunity there, but I think that all of the turmoil and all the talk, as much as players say it doesn't matter to them, I think it does matter to them, and I think it helps motivate. So then you have a situation with Derek Carr, and I've always said at 2020 when they open up the stadium, which who knows now will be not because it's not finished, but because of the pandemic. When they get there, I always said Derek Carr would be starting quarterback. I have not changed my opinion or tune on that at all. But he was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, of course, Will Compton's podcast there, and he talked about the kind of criticisms and all that kind of stuff. And in this clip, I'm going to play it for you. Again, attribution to Bussin' with the Boys podcast. When I play it, I want you to hear his voice and what he says, of course, but listen to his voice. And I think this is part of the reason why I think Derek Carr is going to have a big season. Here we go.
Something I had to grow through as a man and as a person to where I really don't care what anybody has to say about me. You can turn the film on, let's watch this, let's watch that, and then we can talk about it. Then it's a different conversation. But when I continued, so many times to let people write these narratives and I would just give them these politically correct answers, man, I'm done with that. Like, they can have all that. Like, I'm done with it. Like, I know what I can do. I know what kind of player I am. I know what I put on film. I know the things that I've accomplished and things like that. And I know the things I can do better and the things I'm going to accomplish and the things I'm going to move forward. And I don't need any of them to write anything nice about me. I don't need any of their votes for anything. Playing the nice guy only got me 6 MVP votes anyway, back a couple years ago. Like that didn't do crap for me, you know what I mean? And so I'm still me, but I just don't care about any of that anymore. If their negativity and their hopelessness and what I'm trying to accomplish isn't pushing me in the way that I want to go, I don't have time for it.
Okay, so there you go, Derek Carr. And I want to get your guys' reaction to this because to me, yeah, I don't care what people say, think. Everybody says that. He's been saying that for a couple years. And I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's somewhat true and not true. I'm not saying he's being dishonest. I'm just saying that what I love about that clip was that he's angry. And I think that's part of hearing it. And then, of course, now the Raiders haven't made a move at quarterback. They didn't go get Jordan Love like some people thought they would and all this. They're sticking with him. Now, they brought in Marcus Mariota, which I think is part of the equation, too. I've said all along that they needed to get somebody to push them. I think any of us, it doesn't matter what our jobs are. If we have somebody pushing us to be the best we can be, that's not a bad thing. So I think the combination of Mariota behind him, of having to listen to the negativity for so long, now he's got weapons. I think that anger is going to fuel him, and I think you'll see more fire out of him, and I think he'll be the best he can be.
Well, let's hope so. To me, that's gonna all that he says about not caring what people says rings so hollow because he will block anybody on Twitter. I mean, he's got he's listening to too much of the press and he has got sensitive about it in the past. Let's hope he doesn't care because all that is a distraction he doesn't need. But
Right.
Until I see him actually not caring about this stuff, I'll take that with a grain of salt.
And Scott, you talk about him having, you think he's going to have a career year. His last 2 years combined, 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's already putting up great numbers. We need the defense to step up a little bit, get some more stops. And now with all of these playmakers, you got Henry Ruggs, that speed. That's going to open up. That's going to open up Josh Jacobs. That's going to open up Darren Waller. So it's really coming together in my point of view.
Well, and he put up great numbers, and I'm not taking any of that away from him, but I think it's different now, Chaz. I think the numbers that matter are wins, and I think that confidence, it's not that he didn't have, physical ability is there. The guy's a good quarterback. There's no question about it. And so I think for him, putting up the numbers was one thing, but I think taking that next step, and that's what I love about hearing. Now he's sitting there talking to two fellow NFL players, right? So his openness, he's not talking to the media. And so to me, that fire that I heard just in that clip, and I listened to the whole podcast as well, where he talks about Las Vegas and all that kind of stuff, which was cool. But when you listen to the voice and the anger, I say anger, but the motivation, the fire, if you will, to me, that is very good. I think that's what you want in your quarterback. You want him out there to be the alpha. You want him to be that. And he is a great, all his teammates have said, we had Alec Ingold on the show a few weeks ago saying that he models his leadership after Derek Carr. He loves Derek Carr as a leader. And so that's huge. He's got the locker room, right? There's no question about that. Now, he's got that outside fire. He's motivated by a quarterback behind him, which is going to push him. He knows he's the starter. So it's not about losing your job. It's about doing the best that you can be. And then now he's got the tools. So I think, and I'm getting people texting me and DMing me on Twitter about how much he's terrible. I disagree. I think he's going to have a big year. And if you want to root against Derek Carr, you're rooting against your team. So I don't quite understand that. I know I thought the Raiders might develop a developmental quarterback, a 2-3 year guy that could at least become a really good backup or maybe surprise you and become a starter down the road. They did not do that. So they're set for now. And so if you don't think, or if you don't root for Derek Carr to do well, then you're rooting against your team. So to me, I don't get that mindset. And you guys can come at me with whatever you want. He's going to have a big year, and I think it's going to be hugely part of what the Raiders are able to do from a success standpoint this season.
Yeah, but then just to go back to stuff that Chaz said earlier, 4,000 yards and 21 total touchdowns isn't great numbers in the NFL anymore. That's a lot of yardage, but he was tied for 20th in touchdowns last year. So, it's like, yeah, the passing yardage looks good, but if you're not scoring, those numbers just ring hollow, So
yeah, that was the problem with the offense, right? We just couldn't get the points.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter how many yards you throw for. It's not fantasy football. You got to score touchdowns, And yeah, he's tied. He was tied for 20th with Gardner Minshew in total touchdowns.
Right, and like what Scott said, the most important thing is wins and losses. And you see in that gradually 4-12 2 years ago, 7-9 last year. Could have been a little bit better. And like you said, Scott, I fully expect them to take another step forward this year. Make the playoffs and start making a run.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna respond. It's a fresh start for him here in Las Vegas. While many fans are still on him and don't believe in him, I think being here, having even moving, you got a new home, you're in a new place, you're learning it, you're going to have a new practice facility, a new stadium. All of that, I think, has motivated him. Not that he wasn't motivated before. I'm not in any way saying that, but I like it, and I think he's going to do really, really well. And I think he's gonna shut everybody up. I really do. I think Derek Carr is going to have as good of a year as he's ever had here in Las Vegas in 2020. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to get a little bit of Kelly's Corner, and then we're going to talk too about overall kind of what our view is on the Raiders draft, as well as talk a little bit about the rest of the offseason and how that might unfold. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. For staying with us. We had some station issues earlier, but we've come back strong, picking up viewers on YouTube as we go along. Thanks for joining us if you're with us there. If you're with us on the radio.com app, you're very, very intelligent. Thanks for downloading that. If you haven't done it, do it. Take us with you wherever you go. And thanks to all of our listeners through supporting us through this difficult time for everybody, of course, but the show having to go remote and all the stuff changes we've made, the video we haven't been able to do like we usually do. So thank you for doing that. All right, this is the time of the show. If you haven't listened to the show before, we're sorry that you've missed all this goodness, but welcome. And what this part of the show, every week, for the most part, we go and we give Kelly, it's called Kelly's Corner, and we give Kelly free reign. He can talk about anything. Sometimes he ends up talking about movies. He talks about cultural issues. Today, I think he's going to talk about football. But Kelly, take us away for Kelly's Corner.
Oh, cultural issues? Have I really broke into cultural issues on here before? Because I'm not the one you want to take that from.
No, but it was like cultural sports related issues. I should have prefaced that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, basically, just had the NFL draft. Everybody's all excited. The one thing I think is dumb, but we all kind of have to do, is grade a draft right after the draft goes out. And I'm just seeing, who is this on Twitter? Somebody actually just took a poll of, they've got their list of the people that did. Some pretty well-known people, got Mel Kiper on there. You got PFF, got Roto World, Monday Morning Quarterback. So I got a nice sampling of all the draft grades. And as usual, the Raiders are at the bottom of the draft down here. They have the 5th worst draft according to the aggregated numbers on this thing. And I always like to look at the difference on there. A lot of B's, C minuses. Then you got somebody that gave the Raiders a D, and then somebody that gave the Raiders an A minus. How the hell do you have that much of a swing in a draft?
It's the Raiders.
This is why this stuff is just completely ridiculous. And not only is it the fact, because say what you want about the Raiders draft, it's an average draft at worst. I would give it a B. I'm not a big fan of the Tanner Muse pick, and the reason I'm not a big fan of the Tanner Muse pick is if you Google Tanner Muse and Combine, the first sentence in every one of the things talks about how shocking his Combine was because he ran a 4.4. Yes, it's shocking because he doesn't run that fast and he's not that agile on tape. So when he blew up the Combine, everybody's like, this is a joke. How did this happen? If you look fast on tape, nobody's shocked when you run fast. All right, but I'll digress on that. So one of the guys that gave the Raiders a B, one of them gave the Raiders, and another gave the Raiders a C, gave the Eagles an A minus for their draft. The Philadelphia Eagles spent a 2nd-round pick on a guy they pray does not see the field. That is the biggest waste of a draft pick when it's a quarterback, and you just gave your quarterback a 4-year, $130 million extension. So instead of making your team better, what do? You go draft a guy because you're afraid the guy you just paid $100 million to might get hurt again. That's a wasted draft pick. I don't care what anybody says. Because guess what? If he plays, your team's screwed. If he doesn't play, you wasted your pick. So those are the 2 choices that you have.